And now, your turn, my dear.
You'll never get away with it.
Get ready to meet your maker, Wolf.
Hold it, Doctor. Your reign on Earth is over.
That remains to be seen, girl.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Christmas episode of Pod Stallions. I am Brian, and next to me, really, really far away, is my good friend Jason.
Ho, ho, ho. Hello, everybody.
And
think of that?
I think a lot of that. That was great. Did you make that up?
It took me a while. I have a team of writers over here, and it took most of the day. But
Bruce Valanche is struggling.
That's what we went with.
But it was worth it. So this is not a Christmas episode. This has nothing to do with Christmas. Although I, like you, and probably our audience, do enjoy indulging in DVDs and Blu-rays over the holidays to pass the time. And I came up with the concept to Jason today. Why don't we do an episode on guilty pleasures? And you fired back, and I loved what you wrote. And this is an actual interesting debate. And I think I'm going to paraphrase you, but you wrote back, in a world where people are wearing frickin' Bangarang t-shirts from Hook, is the guilty pleasure dead? And, you know, my therapist would tell me guilt is a useless emotion. I kind of agree with you. Like, especially as I advance in my years, I really don't give a shit what people think about what I like. And is guilty pleasure is a personal thing, and I'm not embarrassed to talk about this stuff. So it's
parallel to actually my buddy Justin, who listens occasionally. So Justin, if you're listening,
hi Justin.
We were going back and forth via text about, I forget what it was. He was, it might have been, there's this new on Netflix, as this is going to air. There's this new Netflix movie with Ryan Reynolds. It's a Michael Bay film called Six Underground. Half the reason I wanted to watch it was because that was a Sneaker Pimps song, and I thought, maybe they'll use the song.
That was on my top 20 or top songs of 2019 on my Spotify.
See, there you go. And I thought, maybe they're going to be clever. Anyway, it's mental. I mean, I watched 20 minutes, and it's like 1997, 98 Michael Bay madness, and you've never seen more carnage or more innocent people go flying in the air and get run over by cars.
Wilhelm screams?
Crazy. No, more just like literally people splatting against the windshield, like bystanders. It was really bizarre. But I get what they were doing, and what they were sort of winking at was, let's just be as nihilistic, and no one's keeping, it's not a studio thing, no one's keeping track of this, there's not a rating on it, so let's just go nuts. And Michael Bay says, let's just throw everything in the blender, whatever. And that led to conversations about things that's like, one of his favorite movies of all time is Roadhouse. Now, I think he's well aware that it's cheesy. He's well aware. And the question I always have with him is, do you really think that's a good movie, or are you embracing its cheesiness? And the answer really is, it doesn't matter, because I can make fun of him for elevating that, or I can make fun of the people that wearing Bangarang t-shirts and things like that, because my defense would be, it's not, well, people say, well, they were young when Hook came out. Yeah, well, I was young when The Dark Crystal came out, and I don't like it.
Hey!
I don't mind it. I'm not.
We're friends with that. Does nothing for me. My wife is beloved. But
I don't know. I really don't know. It's creatively and visually, it's stunning, and it has memories for me of a certain time, but it's not something I want to pop in.
Yeah.
To for the weekend or whatever. So there's an argument to be made that just because it came from your childhood or a formative time in your life doesn't mean it's good. Now, there's lots of stuff that time. Look, there's no denying. I mean, a friend of mine the other night, I was busy and I couldn't do it, but invited me to this thing he had tickets for. It was Todd Rundgren, some other guys. They were performing the White Album, but he sent me this voicemail, and he said, and Christopher Cross is going to be there playing, and he played a couple of his own songs. Now, I could live my entire life never hearing a Christopher Cross song again or seeing him live, but if somebody had a free ticket, I'd have to go, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go. I gotta see this. But it's not. But there's the difference is like there's a factor to the. I think that we may be in an age where everything has become like air supply. You know, people have a bigger following now than they have in 25 years. Christopher Cross, like there's nothing that's too cheesy or too lame or too dumb. Whether it's like Mac and Me is going to be the next thing or something,
Well, I think Mac and Me is universally reviled, but it's sort of a hipster thing, and I kind of respect that. It's everybody knows it's horrible, but that's okay. But that you bring up something. You know how if you lived in a small town and you have a weird fetish, you generally felt like an outcast. But thanks to the internet, now all of you that really have a thing for fire helmets have a group and a community and a weekly or a yearly convention. I think that's the long tail of everything on the internet. Like everything
I think you're right.
can get appreciated now because some guy in Australia thinks Mac and Me is the greatest movie ever, and now you're friends.
I always quote your wife. It's the greatest quote.
Yeah.
Whatever we were talking one day, and your wife said, "You know what? That's someone's favorite movie."
Yeah, that's one of her favorite lines, and she, by the way, is the queen of the guilty fetish. Or not the guilty fetish. Oh my stars! The guilty pleasure. Wow, I'm done.
Well,
good night, everybody.
We're just gonna smooth over that.
Oh boy. What I mean is, she watches Hallmark movies. She is watching Smallville upstairs right now. Smallville.
Okay. You know what? This is. I'll give you one. one. About 6 years ago, I proposed to my cohorts with Biff Bang Pow because we had a relationship with Universal and things like that. I said Golden Girls. Golden Girls. Golden Girls.
Visionary.
I'm telling you, it's going to be the next thing. Let's just do bobbleheads. Just bobbleheads. We can have some of them talk, some of them not. But I'm telling you, that show runs day in and day out. It's got a huge following in the LGBTQ community. It's got a huge following in the sort of fans of camp stuff. It's got younger people digging.
My stupid bored dorm room played it ad nauseum.
Yeah, and not to say I told you so, but we got 8-inch figures, we got little figures, we got bobbleheads, we got mugs. It all sort of kicked off. So, but that's a show that everybody. I mean, it was always a little on the edgy side, truth be told, because it was pretty bold in its writing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be like, why that? Like, why that connected and not Facts of Life, let's say, or Different Strokes,
yeah.
or
when Mego launched those Facts of Life dolls. My wife watches Facts of Life every day until they stop airing it. Thank God. But
I'm saying the level of I've yet to hear. Remember the day I saw the Hook T-shirt and I texted you what is going on? That was the time I knew. But I've yet to see sort of a wave come of 2D T-shirts and Natalie bobbleheads and whatever. We might get there, but I'm saying that there's something about the cult. I mean, I think even the term cult movie or cult show, I think that's even going to sort of go away because I think everyone is going to discover everything at some point. It's all sort of...
Yeah, like
So
I went to go see Bugsy Malone at the movie theater with my daughter because she likes Paul Williams, and Bugsy Malone played in Canada, I think around Christmas every year, and that's a UK thing. And you get into the theater and there's a whole bunch of people in there, and you realize, oh shit, I'm not alone in this. Like this was everyone's Christmas movie, and yeah, it's strange how these little domes appear, but is the word cult all that applicable when you can get a shirt at Hot Topic? Isn't that mainstream?
Well, okay, and then so what are the sort of parameters? Like, I can say to this day, I would still quantify Buckaroo Banzai as a cult film because it's not had even the crossover appeal that Flash Gordon has. But I spent the bulk of my life defending and telling people how much I loved Flash Gordon, and most people hadn't seen it or forgot about it or whatever. But it was people were aware of it. Buckaroo Banzai, that's a sort of a secret handshake, and it's yet to find. So what I mean is, like, what we consider cult. I mean, like you love the Nashi films and Blood Island and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Would you categorize that if someone said, I don't know what that is, would you say, well, they get a real cult following? Like if there are these horror movies that are done at a certain time and there's sort of a cult thing, or is it how would you categorize that?
I would categorize the Nashi or the Blood Island films as I like to use drive-in films or exploitation film. Well, not necessarily exploitation. I like to use the word drive-in films.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a bit like anything. It's definitely a cult.
But if you were, I'm not trying to be a smartass because we're the same age.
I'm going to be a dumbass.
But if you were trying to tell someone that has no parameters for what a drive-in is,
yeah,
like they don't know what the drive-in culture is, how would you sort of introduce that to somebody or tell somebody what those are? Because I think the stuff that, like the Evil Dead stuff, was that ever mainstream or was it always cult? And then before, Bruce Campbell still isn't quite, he is mainstream, but he's not. He's always going to have that affiliation. And so, it's strange. It's exactly what you said. I think the internet, the DVDs, libraries suddenly releasing full collections of shows, not just one VHS with a pilot or something. It was a way to sort of bring more and more of those people together that were sort of get more connected with everything. But I don't know if guilty pleasure. It feels like everything is sort of shameless. Like you don't have to have,
Yeah. I absolutely do.
You said it perfect. The analogy you said was perfect about being in that town. I didn't, growing up in St. Paul, Minnesota, and Minneapolis, there weren't a ton of comic shops. There were some, but there weren't a ton. But the place I've told you about before, it's actually still there in St. Paul on Snelling Avenue in St. Paul. Midway Books. Midway Books was the only place, one of two places, but the closest place that I could go and find a copy of Doctor Who Monthly, which was when it was like printed on newspaper print.
Yeah.
And they had the Target books. Well, by 84, 85, chains like Walden Books and B. Dalton were carrying a lot of the Target books. But as far as like the hardcover stuff or whatever, it was going to be this one place. So if you saw a poster in the window that was a Doctor Who poster or something, it was like, oh, this is welcoming to me. This is, and put it in a brown paper bag.
It was like a hobo symbol, you knew what that was and where to go. Yeah. No, that's interesting. I think, and this is something I used to say in college when I was a hipster cinema snob. I used to refer to regular people as mainstreamers. Like my roommate, he was only into Tom Cruise movies, and I kind of had a bit of a chip on my shoulder, and I used to call him mainstreamer. not to his face. But and like if I sit in the break room at work sometimes, I'm often surprised how square people are, and I don't mean that in a, but just like the buddy I work with likes to watch hockey and read Tom Clancy novels. He's completely satisfied with this life, and I don't knock it. I have nothing against that, but it's just not for me, and I don't.
No, but it's funny. It's now that it's so funny you said Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
I now just remembered what the conversation was with my buddy Justin that led to this text conversation a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was the new trailer for the new Top Gun, Maverick.
Oh yeah.
Or whatever that's called. And our joke was, wow, Justin, you should have edited that because you could have just taken the original film and just cut for cut made it over again with older people or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like clearly deliberately cheesy. It's deliberately, guys with their shirts off, winking at, it's like the movie comes out, and I was trying to explain this to him, like, I didn't know, I knew people that saw Top Gun.
Yeah.
I don't know if I saw it until VHS, but it wasn't the kind of thing that guys were sitting around going, did you see Top Gun? Oh man, we didn't really go see Tom Cruise. He was like a heartthrob, and it was like a romance. And,
I knew one guy that was like all douchey about it, and I didn't like him. So I've never seen Top Gun because of him, because that movie reminds me of him.
Wow. I
actually bonded with a friend of mine, jokingly one day, my friend Corey, and I was like, I've never seen Top Gun. He's like, neither have I. And I thought, oh my God, I thought I was the only one, because it was a hit movie.
It was massive. It was massive. The soundtrack was enormous. You couldn't go anywhere and not hear one of 4 or 5 tracks that were singles off of that album. But it was never. It was. I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to get letters. It was never cool. It was never cool. Okay. It was. Dirty Dancing wasn't cool. Top Gun wasn't cool. It was never. I mean, for the most part, Star Trek movies weren't cool, but in a different way. So now here comes this sequel all these years later, and it's clearly.
Fletch was cool, right?
Say again?
Fletch was cool, right? Asking for
Which
a friend.
One?
Fletch?
Which one?
Fletch and Fletch Lives? Were they cool?
Fletch was...
Okay.
Fletch was so cool.
I have so much of my identity invested in Fletch movies. It would kill me if you didn't think that was
so
cool.
It was frosty. No,
Wonderful.
Fletch was cool, but I'm saying, like, Fletch had that sort of Ghostbusters edge of, like, the wise asses and the... But, what I'm saying is, like, this trailer comes out, and clearly they're embracing the original, which makes sense. Tom Cruise, he still looks great, and he's an older guy, and there's younger fighter pilots doing the same shit he did or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's clearly embracing the tone of the original, and I think it's saying, we know how cheesy that was. We didn't know it was cheesy at the time, and this leads to an interesting conversation about camp.
Yeah.
What defines camp? And you and I are fans of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Yeah.
We both.
You more than me. I prefer other Meyer ventures, but.
Yeah, but that's just such an insane bag of insanity that it's so. So I got the Criterion when they had that. So I got the Blu-ray, and John Waters talks about it on there, and it's got loads of great stuff. I told you it's got that. Jonathan Ross, Incredibly Strange film show. That episode with Russ Meyer from '88 is on there.
I love that Russ Meyer greets him with champagne in his driveway.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And so what? But that's an example to me of I don't know, like a lot of the Flash Gordon script, Lorenzo. And I'm learning more and more. Like
Lorenzo D. Semple Jr. Wasn't that his
Lorenzo
name?
Semple Jr. Yeah, he knew he was winking at the audience. He knew that he was putting stuff in there to wink and to make it kind of silly. I think he thought part of the reason he was hired was because of the Batman TV series, and that's the tone that they wanted. But there was a huge language barrier and whatever. But you look at something like Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, that is camp. Like people always talk about Showgirls like it was deliberately.
No, that was a MacGuffin.
that thing was for real.
That was just a marketing switch. Like, people started laughing and they went, "Hey, we meant to do that." That is a Tommy Wiseau move. Like, Wiseau
Exactly.
did that exact 180 and said, "Oh, this was comedy," and it's like a bullshit. And that's what makes The Room funny. But yeah, the same Showgirls was manufactured.
So that gets into it too. Like, to me, I think they're very similar cousins.
Yeah.
I think the cult thing that's become, the Bangarang T-shirt or buying the ticket for the Air Supply Christopher Cross, Hall & Oates Festival or whatever.
Whoa, do not badmouth the Hall & Oates.
No, I'm not. In fact, I saw them a couple of years ago at the Hollywood Bowl, and they were fantastic. He sounded fan-frickin-tastic.
Okay.
Although they didn't play Rich Girl, which I was very upset about.
Wow. Did you burn down the Hollywood Bowl?
You know what? I got it. I know where I'm going.
Okay.
The term yacht rock.
Yeah.
Okay. The term yacht rock. Now, what are your thoughts on the term yacht rock and the meaning and what?
Well, I think what they mean by yacht is white people, and by rock I mean over 40. But I also.
But a lot of younger.
I get it. I can't tell. Like, I can't tell because I'm not a. I got called OK Boomer today on YouTube. That was never stops hurting. But like, that's childhood to me. My mom listened to that horrific shit, and so I put it on all the time. But like, I live next door to a guy that loves Billy Joel all day long. Billy Joel and Elton John, and I think one day I just joked with him about Michael McDonald because I find Michael McDonald kind of ironically great, and that makes him violently mad. And I was like, really? Michael McDonald?
It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Like, it actually kind of like kept me up that night. Like, how could he hate? And then I made a joke about Kenny Loggins. He's like, stop it! And it's like, really? Like, you kind of like cheesy stuff, but you don't.
Okay, so there you go. This is an interesting thread here because, again, a different friend, I think, went to, I don't know if it was Air Supply, what it was. Loads of people. He took pictures. Loads of people around wearing captain's hats.
Yeah.
Boating caps. And you just go, okay, wait a second. Now, are you winking? Are you being so? Oh my God, I love that.
Where does this end and where does it begin? Is what you're trying to say? Like,
yes.
I think it's just people having fun though, because I've never had it put more beautifully than and I'm gonna paraphrase this and butcher it. But you know who John Hodgman is, right?
Said the Elton John has Hodgkins? What'd you say?
No. You know who John Hodgman is? You remember?
Oh yeah.
I'm an Apple and I'm a PC guy.
Yeah.
He's actually really quite funny and salient, and he was talking about snobbery in pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
And he put this narrative together saying that stories were meant to give us hope while we were around the fire, to make us forget about the darkness at our backs. And I remember thinking, I was watching this late at night going like, oh my God, that's beautiful. So I don't ever want to tread on anyone's enjoyment. If, my wife and my daughter want to watch Hallmark Christmas movies, even though they are the same frickin' movie over and over again, it's like comfort food. It's joy.
It's comfort food. And now, recently there was a controversy over a commercial that aired on the Hallmark Channel of two gay people getting married and kissing in this commercial. Yeah. And apparently some wacky organization wrote Hallmark Channel. And Hallmark Channel pulled the ad.
Oh.
Okay? But then the backlash was so strong, they were like, we really shouldn't have reacted so strongly, and we're going to put in. They said to the company, like, we'd love to have it back. My point is, Hallmark, somebody from Hallmark, or somebody from, I think it might have been Glad or something, was on television talking about it, and they were like, there's a huge audience like, you know, she was like, she's like, you know, LGBTQ community, Hallmark Channel is huge.
Yeah.
You know, and to me that
know who your audience is. I think right
yeah,
there.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's also like I think it's comfort. I don't think anybody is watching the Hallmark Channel because they think they're going to see the deer hunter.
Yeah.
Okay, they're watching the Hallmark Channel. Okay, the Hallmark Channel's version of the deer
I don't know.
hunter
They play the
very
McNeil Lehrer report every morning, Jason.
The Hallmark Channel Deer Hunter is going to be Michael Landon. You know, it's a 30-year-old TV movie where he got stranded at a cabin where he was hunting deer, and a woman on a horse, you know, broke her leg, and he had to nurse her back to health. And
by Michael Landon, you mean Casey? No, what am I? Dang it! I blew that line. I was gonna try and make a Casper Van Dien joke.
Van Dien.
Yeah.
Is he still married to Catherine Oxenberg?
You tell me.
Remember he was married?
I don't know. I sat behind him at a toy show about 5 years ago. He was filming a Christmas movie in Toronto and doing a Toronto toy show, but I forgot to get his autograph, even though he's my 11th favorite Tarzan.
Okay, now you bring up an interesting name, Casper Van Dien. What do I think of when I think of him? I think of Starship Troopers.
Greatest movie ever made.
And I remember seeing it when it came out, and I was so, like, the action, the war sequences are fantastic. Like, it is a great World War II type movie. It really is. It knows full well how insane it's being.
It's clever as hell, actually.
It knows that it's being...
It's Verhoeven. It's sarcastic out the ass. And I'll tell you, the one thing that I learned from that was my friend, who I was in his wedding party that year, was a moron. He went, "Why didn't they just nuke the planet? What the hell?" And I'm just like, oh my God, you didn't get the narrative, you didn't get the idea of fascism. Okay. You ever done that? You go to a film with a friend and you realize, oh, they didn't get this at all.
Yeah, it's always the ones that, like, they deconstruct it and you go, okay, you're okay with the giant monster breathing fire.
But you had a real problem with that. They just didn't nuke the planet. It's like they didn't nuke the planet because they're faking this war to just keep the screw it. You know, I didn't want to describe it to him. And then I began being very envious of him because Friday nights in the town I live in, I used to walk into a video store and sometimes walk out empty-handed. I couldn't find a film that satisfied my stupid ADHD rattled brain. And he would always walk out with like 2 or 3 movies that he could sit down and watch, you know, and he would tell me about The Skulls with Joshua Jackson, and I'd just be sitting there like, I envy you, man. Like, I really seriously do.
You bring up an interesting point, because back to that text conversation I was having.
Yeah.
I was going back and forth about Maverick and Top Gun and Give Me a Break and blah, 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 you know. He brings up Roadhouse, and I go, I get it. I get that that's one of your favorites.
Oh, I totally get Roadhouse. Like, Mystery Science Theater loves Roadhouse.
Yeah, he knows it's cheesy, and he gets it and whatever, but he loves it. But my argument, he said, oh, come on, what's the guiltiest pleasure? Like, what's the most mainstream guilty, you know, he said, not guilty pleasure, but he said something like that. And I said, don't mistake what I'm saying for, like, because it's mainstream. Like, I think Liar Liar is the funniest thing Jim Carrey's ever done. Like, I think his performance in Liar Liar is his courtroom, his beating himself up in the bath. I mean, whatever, that was the zenith for him, I think. Yeah. But even stuff like the first, you know, Ace Ventura that nobody really saw in the theater. Like, a guy who was following it. I saw it and I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. So it's not like you know, for something like this Six Underground thing, I go, I know what this is supposed to be. I know what this is doing. But I've got a finite amount of time. And I'm happy to, you know, go to see, you know, a ridiculous, like, you know, like Nicolas Cage is one of those guys that every now and then he does something like Mandy, where you go, oh my God, where have you been, Nicolas Cage? And
Did you dug that? I couldn't get into that.
I thought it was less than the sum of its parts, kind of like, I think people were a little nuts over it, but I thought he was fantastic. And when you consider the last 6 things he did were like direct to DVD Hong Kong, you know, he's a teacher in Hong Kong, or he's
Did you see Mom and Dad? I think it was called Mom and Dad.
I did not see that, but somebody told me I should see it.
That was pretty decent actually for him. My wife loves Nicolas Cage, and she will see him in any, you know, this is Nostradamus Bible end of the world bullshit that he makes for Netflix, and
so
she'll just go like, I don't care, and I consider that Nicolas Cage is like her guilty pleasure for sure, absolutely.
And he's a bit of a guilty pleasure for me too, and that's why but I'm saying I have to be selective. Like right now there's about 3 or 4 Nicolas Cage movies that have never seen the inside of a theater that you can watch, like, you know, they're streaming or whatever. And when I watch the trailers, I just go, okay, that might be my breaking point. Not because of Nicolas Cage, but because he's literally the only actor in it, and everyone else is someone they just found to stick in the movie because they couldn't afford, you know, anybody else. So
we blew our wad on Nicolas Cage, so.
Yeah, it's kind of like I don't go out of my way to find cheesy stuff, but I happily, you know, embrace it. I think that the line that I always draw with stuff is, okay, I'll give you another good example, I think, that sort of got trashed when it came out, but I liked it, is The Long Kiss Goodnight.
Gina Davis, is that a Rennie Harlin film?
Harlin.
That was filmed in Toronto. That was filmed not far from where I lived.
Oh, no kidding.
You and I were there. It's part of it is filmed in the Annex in Toronto, where they filmed Scott Pilgrim. You and I drove right by it. The one and only time we've actually been in the same car together. I've never actually sat through that film. But I've heard good things.
It's a good movie, and you realize that the idea of, you know, this character who, you know, has an assassin lurking within them that doesn't know it, you know, like we've seen that trope half a dozen times since The Long Kiss Goodnight.
Oh yeah, the Bourne films are like that.
Who did?
The Bourne films.
Yes, the Bourne films. Frickin' Max Landis had some movie. I know we don't say his name.
Oh, that was a fantastic film.
That movie. So what I'm saying is, like, it is so, you know, it's politically incorrect. The action is insane.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's a cartoon villain. But because it's such a smart script, I mean smart in the sense of the wisecracks and things like that, I always embraced it. And I think I see on, you know, there's a couple of like movie reviewers on Twitter and younger people that have all said, man, if you haven't seen Long Kiss, it's a great Christmas movie. That should be on the list of Christmas movies and da 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 da. But it's a thing that sort of got shit on, you know, when it came out.
I remember that, yeah.
So there's a line. So I think that the gist is everybody. I don't know if there is a guilty pleasure. Like, this is always a good question too to ask people when it comes to music. And I remember an interview with someone. Do you remember the Fast Show, the UK sketch show called the Fast Show?
I remember it barely, but I remember it.
Yeah. Well, the guy on there who did the jazz, he was the guy that did Jazz Club. Jazz, nice. You know, he sort of leaned in.
Yeah.
Really great. You know, that guy, John Thompson. He's been a fan of Level 42 since they were alive. You know, and they managed to get them on the show at one point, but. He realized, well, he's the reason they got on the show. And somebody asked him in some music magazine like 10 years ago, you know, like, do you still dig Guilty Pleasure? He's like, they're not a guilty pleasure. I love them. I love them. I've loved them. I'll always love that band. You know, I like you grown out of the Level 42 love or whatever. And so many people don't know who Level 42 is that every now and then, if someone does pull that question with me, like, come on, what's the one that's sort of not guilty? So it's not a guilty pleasure, but Level 42. There's a couple of Level 42 records that, you know, that I played nonstop because of their. And you wouldn't think that if people knew me and knew the music that I'm into and stuff, that would be sort of a out of left field kind of thing.
Yeah, I actually listen to a lot of records I find at Value Village. You know, like Whipped Cream and Other Delights by Herb Alpert, or that kind of thing, because I don't consider them guilty pleasures at all. They're quality music, but I just enjoy listening to them. Quincy Jones, Bossa Nova, they're fun records.
Yeah, but it's like if all of a sudden, New Kids on the Block, their first two records became like, guilty, but like there are lines, I think, that sort of, like I'm not going to listen to Buffy St. Marie. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, I never dug that, but I think there was a great Onion article a few years ago, probably more like 20 years ago, but that said, man who ironically enjoyed these things now just enjoys them. and it's this guy sipping a Tom Collins, going a drink he used to actually enjoy ironically that he just likes now. And I felt that way about like Neil Diamond records. I would buy them and like, yeah, this is so cheesy, and then it's like, oh shit, I just like Neil Diamond now. Like there's just no.
That is actually a great example, because you said Tom Collins made me think of Phil Collins.
Yeah.
And I was out.
I friggin' love Genesis.
I was out with a buddy a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about this very thing, and I was like, Phil Collins. People forget how massive he was, and like how big Genesis was, and then he skated both for a while. Live Aid and all this stuff. And then after that, everybody just sort of. He became like yesterday's news, and everybody just turned their nose up. Well, now it's come around again, where people are going, "Hey, wait a second, you better reevaluate his stuff, because it was really, it's funny how these things, sort of the way that these things sort of go in."
I think last summer I started blaring "Mama" by Genesis, which is one of my favorite songs by them.
And a great tune.
My wife was like, "Oh God, what are you playing?" And then like. By the end of the summer, she's like, "Put on Mama," and it's like, yeah. Right?
I sat with him and went down the list of everything from like Duke up to Invisible Touch, and in between the Genesis or a solo record, how many singles he had, and where these tunes, like there's horns started to come in, and then this thing, and then In the Air Tonight, whatever. We're talking about Miami Vice, and the first two seasons of that show, and how great the show was, and music and everything. But it did come around to Neil Diamond too. And Neil Diamond, I remember in 1988 when UB40 had a new record out, but some DJ in Dallas or something started playing Red Red Wine, which was a cover from '83, and that suddenly climbed the charts. And so people kind of ignored the new record, but they were getting airplay for Red Red Wine that didn't really do much when it first came out in America. Well, most people didn't know that was written by Neil Diamond. That he wrote that song and whatever. So there was an interview with him in Rolling Stone or something, and they said the term that they used was like, he's always been popular, never fashionable. And I thought that's interesting. Like, Neil Diamond from the late 60s up to the early 80s was just at least U.S. chart constant. I mean, single after single after single.
What a wonderful thing that you could apply to almost everything I like.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's true though. It's true. I mean,
like you look at things and things like, and I'm sure I'm defending Nickelback somehow in this, but if the masses enjoy it but no one likes it, then no one professes to like it, then what is it? Recently you and I are in a Facebook group where somebody posted a picture of the Mummy, the Tom Cruise Mummy movie, and said, just a reminder, this was horrible, and that bugged me, because it's like I remember when that came out, and I'm a humongous Universal Monsters fan, and I did not see it in the theater, and I'm not a huge Tom Cruise fan, and I didn't, I heard bad press, and I finally put it on when it came out on on demand, and went, that wasn't great, but it wasn't, I've seen much worse.
Yeah. Let's put it this way: there have to be watermarks for such things. As bad movies or misguided or misjudged movies go, that is not that doesn't even pop into my head really. It's
Yeah,
like,
and then I want to go on to that to say, and this is, I guess, a confessional. I'm Catholic, so forgive me, Jason, for I've sinned, but I like Justice League. I own it on Blu-ray.
You're absolutely not alone. You
Yeah.
are absolutely not alone.
It's not great, but I enjoyed it better than I have many Marvel movies. Like, I could honestly say I would put it, like, in the median of the Marvel movies in terms
See,
of...
and for me, and knowing you, and knowing what you're into and everything, my immediate, what clicks in my head is, I'm really glad that you dig that. I'm glad that you enjoy it. I think I own it, as a matter of fact. Like, I think there's some good stuff in it, but I don't, again, as far as, like, horrible misfires go, that doesn't come into my head. It doesn't come into my head that way in those terms. There's stuff in it, and I do think there is, because everyone's clamoring for this Snyder cut.
I don't think
No,
I
but
see that.
From the sound of it, I don't think we'll ever see it, but it sounds like there is an even better cut out there that had a lot of stuff that got chopped up that maybe would explain why, whatever. But it's interesting because this again comes around to the current sort of climate. I'm in Los Angeles. I work in the movie, TV industry, and voiceover and stuff. This is the time of year when screeners go out. So you get screeners of movies that are currently in the theater. Now, I see a lot of stuff, and if I don't catch it in the theater, I'm probably going to rent it digitally for $5 or whatever. But this is about the time of year where I start to see everything that I haven't seen. I don't want to name too many names, but let's just say something like Ford versus Ferrari, which I would not be first in line to see this thing, but it would have enough in it that I go, well, I'm intrigued with that. I like the director. I like Christian Bale. I think it could be an interesting story, whatever. And I see it, and it's almost like this is what I compared it to, either an episode of Riptide, or like if a dog had shown up at the end in sunglasses and took the wheel of the car and drove the last lap. It couldn't have been more like a mid-'70s kind of Disney movie or something. But I swear to God, across the board, this thing is getting 5-star reviews and award, buzz, whatever. So again, it's like shows what I know, like that was my takeaway from stuff. But I think there's something to, stuff finding an audience, or I think we're going to get to a point where generationally there are going to be people behind us that haven't seen as much stuff, or that maybe aren't as curious to see as much stuff, and that's why you get reviews saying, like, comparing Knives Out to the greatest Agatha Christie whodunit. Well, clearly you've never seen an Agatha Christie film or read one of her books, because that's a ridiculous, thing to say. But there's something to be being out of step too. Like, I'm clearly out of step on Justice League because people love that movie. I don't hate it by any means, but people.
I had fun with it. I enjoyed it, and my wife enjoyed it, and like, she'll put it on occasionally too, and it's like, okay, I'm not alone in this. The whole family thought it was okay.
Hey, here you go. This will bring it along the same line.
Sure.
Because we were talking about the Watchman TV series on HBO.
Yes.
Which leads me again to that sort of tangent. We were saying, like, everything is acceptable now, and we're living in this golden age of stuff that you would never, ever in a million years think. And I think it's because, the younger, the people that grew up with this stuff are now in charge of it in their day-to-day, I love Watchmen. I love the movie.
I thought, like, okay, let me put. I thought it was great at the time. I remember walking out of the theater going, that's the best it could be as a feature film, and I stand by that. I own the extended cut on Blu-ray, and it is a massive downer, which I guess it should be. And but having seen this television series, I realize it could have been better, because this TV series.
Yeah, it would have been better. It absolutely could have been better. I don't think it's perfect, but I find people sort of now, especially with the new show, they're like, oh, now with this, like, I mean, not like what you just did, but totally like, oh, F that movie kind of thing.
No.
And I go, wait a second. He made, and I don't like Zack Snyder, or whatever, but he made a 2 hour and 45-minute hard R movie.
Yeah.
That was faithful to the book. He would have been crucified if he wasn't faithful.
To a degree. I mean, he did change the ending, but I understood it.
He did change the ending, but I never had a problem with it because of how convoluted the actual ending in the book kind of is, and there's a finite amount of time in this movie. First of all, it was an unfilmable book. Gilliam couldn't do it, nobody could do it, so he does it, and I got issues. There's things I would change or whatever, but I always defended on the basis of he could probably have made a hour and 45-minute movie, made it PG-13, sold Happy Meals, had bigger names in it, and it would have made twice as much money.
No, I do respect it. The thing I don't love about it, and I hope I don't get a ton of hate mail about this, is that all right, I'll say it. He's a huge Ayn Rand fan, and Rorschach is definitely based on Steve Ditko's ideology, and he is an objectivist. And Alan Moore's take on Rorschach is it's gross Batman. He's homeless basically. He's poor. He stinks, and he's an asshole. And Snyder tried, but in the end ended up kind of making Rorschach cool. And something Alan Moore did say, and I do still to this day love Alan Moore, is if somebody comes up to him and says Rorschach's my hero, he gets freaked out. He's like, oh God, no. That's
what's so brilliant about the new show is that that's what would have happened. The diary would have been found, would have been published in this paper. It would have become a manifesto that was a book, and it would have been everything that Rorschach didn't want. They would have taken what he was doing, the absolutism of it, and twisted it. And so yes, I agree with that. But they also, Snyder also made comedians sympathetic and kind of pathetic by the end. To me, it's like, and the thing that pisses me off. I know we're going on a Watchman rant here, but
that's okay.
I know a guy, and I know several guys that are so anti. And by the way, I tried reading some of Before Watchmen. I didn't get far, but I keep hearing from some people there's some good stuff. I've been trying to read Before Watchmen. I've been trying to read this Doomsday Clock that's been going on for over a year, sort of thing.
Can't do it.
Not good. The series, I was looking forward to it. I'm in, even though I'm suspicious of Lindelof. Far, far, far exceeded my expectations in a way that is still reverberating. I cannot believe how good and how smart this thing is. And I think it's a worthy companion piece to the thread that were put out in the original book and the vibe and the social consciousness and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So what I get pissed off at is people going, if Alan Moore's not involved, it's a ripoff, forget it. I want nothing to do with it. Da-da-da-da-da. Which negates the fact, and I love Alan Moore, but Alan Moore spent his entire career coming into properties, lesser-known titles, things that nobody really cared about, revamping them, taking them somewhere edgy and different, because nobody cared about Mr. Miracle. I mean, Captain
Marvel Man.
Marvel Man. Nobody really cared about Swamp Thing. These were books that weren't doing much. And he came in, and brilliant at what he did was, you could go all the way up to Watchmen, and it was the Charlton characters. And DC says, look, we just got these characters back. Do us a favor.
Go kill your own characters. Yeah.
Don't kill them all. We just got them back. And so he creates his own characters. So Alan Moore has spent the bulk of his career in comics taking other people's inventions and doing variations on a theme and doing something radical and something different with them. So I don't know why people get so crazy when someone takes an existing story or existing characters and does stuff with them. And as far as like the contracts and stuff and the compensation, because I think the deal was hey, when this goes out of print, you can get the rights to the characters back. Well, DC never let Watchmen go out of print. It's been a perennial...
they screwed him, and that's the only part I will say is that his daughter went on his defense, and I read it, and I completely understand his position. I respect him. She said, when you've had your heart broken this much, you don't want to continue in a genre. So all that stuff about saying Alan Moore doesn't read modern comics, yeah, well, you know, I think he has been screwed a little bit, and he might be, you know, he's a highly creative man, and
he absolutely has been screwed. There's no doubt. On the other hand, and again, this is coming from someone who loves Alan Moore and has all of his stuff. On the other hand, not an easy guy to work with.
No, I'm sure.
He has burned every bridge. There are people that work with him that have no idea why he doesn't talk to them anymore. He doesn't talk to Dave Gibbons anymore.
No, I understand that. That has to do with that he didn't thank him fast enough or something.
Well,
like
apparently,
that.
yeah, he didn't thank him fast enough or publicly enough about him saying you can have the money. And it's like, so yeah, Alan Moore has it, but he's also... I never understood for the life of me how a guy that's that socially conscious could say, you know what, keep the money. Don't even give me the money. Because you go, Alan, you could help the homeless in Northampton, or you could do something positive with, take their money, take their blood money, and do something with it, and, you know, help people, or, you know, whatever. So there's an absolutism with him, too, that's kind of fascinating.
Oh, yeah. I'm not forgiving him, but what I'm trying to say is that I respect his position. My son and I were talking about whatever the doomsday clock is, and he's saying, oh, Superman's fighting Dr. Manhattan. And, you know, I said to me, that cheapens the whole thing for me. Like, using him feels desperate, and I don't know, something about that bothers me. So I have some reverence for the characters, and then by watching Watchmen on HBO, I went in completely like, I don't know about this.
Right.
But it's got so many layers, and it makes you uncomfortable, just like the original should.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on, and I ended that show going like, you know, yeah, it isn't the same as the comic. The format has been changed to the medium of television, so there's a lot that's different. You know, that you're not going to get a lot of that same kind of subtlety or that storytelling, but my God, the layers upon layers in this thing, that somebody has truly worked very hard on this, and then you've got great performances, and you know, I was blown away. Jeremy Irons is fantastic as Ozymandias, and there's so much irony to it, and so many callbacks. And the new characters they created were so fitting to that universe, like Looking Glass. My God, was that a cool character? And,
I think he's my favorite character from the new show. I thought.
But you know, the other thing I wanted to point out, and this is spoiler territory to a degree, but it's something that I just watched. I just caught up because I was sick of spoilers. I stayed up till like 11:30 last night watching the show, and I never picked up on it. And it's something that I'm excited to say, even though I think other people have picked up on it. I've been told that, is that, you know, Angela Abar is Sister Night. And there's a story that, you know, she finds a 70s blaxploitation film about a black nun superhero called Sister Night. And that's where she takes it. You know, she becomes that. And, of course, at the end, there's a debate, spoilers, that she has Dr. Manhattan's powers now. Her name is Abar. Her last name is Abar. And there is a 70s blaxploitation film called Abar, the Black Superman, about a, obviously, I think it's a motorcycle gang leader who, it's been a long time since I've seen it. It was filmed in Los Angeles. It's filmed in Watts. And he takes a serum and gains superpowers to avenge the death of a scientist's kid. And he ends up being almost godlike at the end of the film. And it's an interesting film. But when I first heard the name Abar, I kind of went, is that like Abar, the Black Superman? And then
Well,
by the end of the show, I went, oh my God, that was intentional. That had to be intentional.
The Easter eggs in there, and the
Yeah.
little nods to the original book, and the threads, and like there's a motel that they pull into at one point. That's the name of the Black Freighter. It's called the Black Freighter, motel.
Oh
or
yeah.
something like
Yeah.
loads of stuff like that. And I think people are saying, well, I hope, it should be one and done. And I'm like, you know what? It could be, but if HBO is smart, they're going to get a move on, because the one character that everybody's going, why is he mentioned once, is Dryberg.
Yeah.
Why is nobody talking about Night Owl? You leave that major character out of the entire show. That to me is the network going, don't shoot don't shoot the whole thing in one go with all these characters. Like,
well, if you go deep on the HBO, I think they have a Watchman site. There's an interview when Sally Jupiter gets captured or something like that, and yeah, he's in prison, and he had been funding his
theory. Actually, Alex has a theory.
Yeah.
Alex's theory is that there's still a chance that Don Johnson is somehow Dryberg, because he kind of thought it all along. So, and the truth is, we never really got a definitive, absolute answer that Johnson's character was as guilty of the things that we think he's guilty of. We don't. It was very vague, like the black and white episode, and the way that Lou Gossett's character sort of spoke with him. It was there was never a definitive statement, but his theory is that the wife is actually this character when they're in the basement in the graphic novel. They're looking at all his stuff, and he's showing her the ship and stuff like that in the original book. She finds this black and white photo of this sort of S&M lady called, Lady Knights or something, or Lady Leather, or whatever the hell she's called. And that she had a sort of a fascination with him, and she had written to him, and then they had a sort of a thing, and they might have had a little bit of a relationship. Well, when you get to the end of the show, her hair, the wife's hair, is exactly the same as the S&M chick in the book.
Oh.
In those panels. So he's like, there's a trap door in the house. Why is there a trap door? Stuff like that. Like, I feel like there's still loads of places it can go. And
I do too, but I mean, I'm okay with. I liked how it ended, but I agree. There's more in that universe to go. That's great to bring it around to the topic. Don't you? I mean, aren't we? I can get down about a lot of stuff, and God knows I do, but we really are like living in this time where the stuff that, we got a Dolomite, we got a biopic for Dolomite. We got we got The Mandalorian. We've got all these things that, whatever varying degrees that we dig or we don't. Dude, I just watched a show where stormtroopers pulled up in a Kenner toy and came piling out. The Imperial troop transport.
Yeah, and the Shadow Troopers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my son went off on that, but what was it? It also has Werner Herzog.
It's got Werner Herzog in it, for God's sake.
Oh
but the Shadow Troopers, I'm going, that was Russ Manning. That was Russ Manning in the weekly strip is where those troopers came from.
Holy crap!
And they made their way
into the 70s, because my son kept saying, I was like, who are these guys? I've never seen them. He goes, no, they've been around forever. And I didn't even notice that. Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're the Shadow Troopers. Like, holy shit. And I think a lot of it has to do with getting the right people in the right positions to make the right stuff. And whether it's, how they write a character or whatever, or the comic book films. Like, I don't mind that there's a million comic book movies, and I don't mind that some of them are based on a graphic novel with like not much hero stuff in it, and they're big or whatever. It's how they're done. I don't mind that there's a proliferation of them. That's just like war movies or westerns or whatever else. It's how they're done or how they're written.
Yeah.
And I do, for the most part, we're in an era now where we're getting better. Like Watchman is a great example of a thing that is. Watchmen is far from a household name. I mean, forget the people that are know this stuff are geeks or nerds or whatever, but it's far from a household name. Certainly the movie, not the. I mean, more people have seen the movie and barely remember it than have read the graphic novel.
Yeah, the movie kind of landed with a thud, didn't it?
No, the movie actually did well. It just because it was 2 hours and 45 minutes and it was rated R.
Yeah.
It was rated R. It couldn't do that much better. That was why I always give him credit for making it the way he did. But so this thing comes along, and the thing that I kept look. Tomorrow night, I'm seeing Star Wars and new Star Wars movie. So this will be dated by the time I don't know what's coming. I'm excited. I'm excited to go to the screening. I think everybody kind of knows how I felt about the previous movie. But the thing that sort of irritates me is one of the things that you hear over and over and over again from certain people that get certain properties is, I love this stuff. Oh my God, I have loved, James Bond, whatever it is, since I was a kid. And if not for this property, I wouldn't even be walking and talking right now. This is the great thing. I know what I'm doing. And then you're delivered the product and you go, you're full of shit. You just said what you needed to say to get in the room and you didn't really care. Well, Lindelof has been going on. Every time I see him in an interview about this show, he's been very adamant about how much Watchmen means to him. And how when he was a certain age, his dad gave him a copy of the book. And, I walk away from this thing, and what Favreau's doing, overseeing Mandalorian, and I go, I believe these people. Like, this is truly who loves this property that made this TV series. That the love and the admiration and understanding of the original property is all over this thing. It's written all over it. I hear a lot of that. People are like, oh yeah, that was my formative experience was reading Moon Knight. It's like, no, stop. No, it wasn't. You're just trying to get the job, and it's going to suck or whatever. So I was beyond impressed with the show, and so we're kind of living in this age where I don't know if there's, what constitutes what a guilty pleasure is anymore, or what you have to sort of hide under the rug, because Hot Topic is selling Beetlejuice socks and stuff. They didn't have Beetlejuice socks when the movie came out.
Yeah, no, they didn't. Even though I loved Beetlejuice when it came out, but I remember I told my boss to go see it at the time, and I heard about that for months. You told me to see that piece of shit. You know that? You did that.
That's funny.
And I'm like, I'm 17. Like, what do you want?
Now, there's some stuff going back that far, like something like Twin Peaks, for example. Twin Peaks to me is a miracle of the wheel coming round, where when you go back and look at that original show, it's a miracle it found the audience it did, and it was as big as it was for a brief shining moment or whatever. It comes back 25 years later and is critically lauded, and people have canceled. It blows up the internet, whatever. It's never going to be mainstream. It's never going to be, I don't think it'll ever, have that thing. Like, everything sort of comes around for the most part. But what would be a thing, let's say a movie or a TV show or something, that could all of a sudden get resurrected, or suddenly you're seeing T-shirts with the poster on it or whatever, that you would see and go, really? Wow, really? Even that has been embraced.
Yeah,
for me,
I'm going to get lynched, but you tell me what you're doing.
I'm going to say Leonard Part 6.
Have you seen Leonard Part 6 Appreciation? We should stomp that and set it on fire.
Hashtag Leonard Part 6 Appreciation. I don't think we'll ever see Leonard Part 6 Appreciation for a myriad of reasons. But what would it be that you would go, really? Wow, that was.
Oh boy, that is really good. So the one thing, like one property that's vintage that nobody's talking about, and you're not going to see merchandise for.
Well, that you would. It could be. Remember the day? This is the analogy I make. That time I was at Comic-Con, and I think I texted you and went, "Did I just see a Bangarang T-shirt?
Yeah.
The guy with the mohawk?" And I was like, "Is this where we're at now? Have we gotten to this place where Hook is cool?"
I think anything you saw when you're 8 can be really cool. And it's all relative to your journey.
journey.
I would have to say I don't expect ever to see any Bob Hoskins Super Mario Brothers merchandise.
Good one. That's good.
Other than like I think that even people who grew up and saw that when they were 8, and I'm sorry, that must be scary, probably didn't.
There were toys. They made toys.
Oh, I remember the toys.
Yeah, but so you don't think we'll ever see, like even a cultish appreciation for?
Oh, I think you'll see I think there always will be hipsters, and I don't deny them. There'll be people who want to go see that frickin' thing. I even had someone I know valiantly defend Nothing But Trouble. You know, the Dan Aykroyd.
The Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, Demi Moore movie?
Yeah. I know somebody who passionately would defend that. And it's like, holy shit! I never thought of anyone liking this. Like, I saw it once and went,
man,
wow, this is failure with a capital F. Like, all guns were pointed at that time on Hudson Hawk, which I will admit I enjoyed. And I was looking at Nothing But Trouble. Like, this is epically bad. Like, this is, here, guy with no direction, here's all this money, and now we're gonna ignore you. So,
that's a great example because some things land. I mean, I remember something like, what comes to mind is a movie like Funny Farm. I remember when Funny Farm.
I saw that in the theater. I liked Funny Farm.
Oh, okay, yeah. I remember Roger Ebert being the one voice of dissent who said, you know what?
This is
or
good.
Maybe it was Simple. And he was like, you know what? It's a funny movie. Everybody relax. It's a good movie. But everybody crapped on it, and it didn't do any business, whatever. But there's a difference, because that you can put down to tone or humor or whatever. There are certain things that are just so intrinsically bad, or so questionable with the subject matter or the vibe of it, or the sort of innuendo, whatever it is. I haven't even seen all of Nothing But Trouble, but it just left a taste. I remember finding
horrible.
it on HBO or something, and just going. And here's a little bit of trivia. And again, there's no reason I should know this. The original title of that movie was Valkenvania.
Valkenvania, yeah.
And they changed, and it's one of those instances where I don't know which title would have been worse for that movie.
Well, it just isn't. It just doesn't work. I mean, half the time Dan Aykroyd's character has a penis for a nose.
Yes, yes.
And it's like, what was that supposed to, like? I think Dan Aykroyd probably has ADHD, and I think apparently it was the greatest film shoot ever to work, because everybody got along. He loved the cast. But yeah, it is a bizarre mess it's a bunch of ideas.
That is a great pick. That is actually really good.
Yeah. I want to just go through my DVDs. I didn't do a lot of show prep, but this is something I think is kind of funny. Is here are 3 movies that I vehemently enjoy and watch all the time. I say I refuse to take guilt for these, but I don't know if I'd talk about these at a dinner party. My friends have seen these with me, and but if I was in a room with strangers, I wouldn't bring these out. The first one is a film called Turkey Shoot. It is an Australian Ozploitation film. It stars
I know that movie.
Olivia Hussey, who I've been in love with since I saw Romeo and Juliet in grade 10, and Stephen Railsback. It is it's insane, and it just gets more insane. It's basically The Most Dangerous Game, if you've ever read that book. But I mean, just at one point, one of the rich people in this post-apocalyptic, society, they're hunting prisoners of, the political prisoners. The one guy just brings a werewolf with him, and it's just meant as like, yeah, he's got a werewolf, and I remember, like, when I showed it to my friends, we had a drunkening one night, and I said, yeah, just ride this out, because it pays off, and you'll know when it pays off, and then immediately they were like, "Is it because this guy has a fucking werewolf with him?" Yes. Like, so that is like, seek that out if you haven't seen Turkey Shoot. By the way, I believe
actually, if I'm correct in this, that is streaming currently on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, get that.
I think it's streaming either on Shudder or Amazon Prime, so you can find it streaming.
Yeah, Giddy Up. That's a great film. The next film I would say, and I am in love with this film, 1990, The Bronx Warriors. This is definitely, Italy just fell in love with the Warriors, and they fell in love with Escape from New York. And in fact, the sequel to this is called Escape from the Bronx. The star of the film is like 18 years old. He was found in a gym. He very obviously can't act, but it's dubbed, and the director just fell in love with his look, which I think is really funny. And the guy walks around the movie, and his walk is so hilarious. You just have to see it. But it's got Fred Williamson and what's his name there?
And Morrow. It's got Vic Morrow, right?
Vic Morrow. That's what I was looking for. Vic Morrow just being a 10-foot tall Vic Morrow in this film. Actually Twilight Zone was the last movie he made. Yeah.
Bronx Warriors might have been the last one that got released, maybe in '84.
Yeah, and Vic Morrow also. If you've ever wanted to see Jaws, but not quite as good, there's a movie called The Last Shark, and oh my God, this is such a bad Jaws ripoff, and he plays the Quint in it. He is like, Italian Quint, which is beautiful.
So let's back up here for a second. So this is okay. So now, when you're saying something like, what's it called? What was the shark one called?
The Last Shark.
The Last Shark. You enjoy it because it's so bad.
I enjoy it because of its, it's almost, it's so shockingly, it's not actually that bad a film. It's actually a very competently made film. I think I enjoy it because, like, they just went so far to rip off Jaws that they're not even trying. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just sitting there like, James Franciscus, I think, is the Roy Scheider part. And it's just like, wow, like, somebody spent, a couple of $1 million and went, let's make it a Jaws again. And,
let's get the shark and make it the shark move.
Yeah, and there's a joy to that. I wouldn't call it a guilty pleasure, but I'm just so amused during the film. You're almost going in with a good vibe. Like, if you didn't go in with that thought of, hey, this is kind of hilarious, this exists. Like, there's a wonderful rip-off of The Exorcist called Abby, but it's just the Black Exorcist. And it does it does star the wonderful William Marshall. And I love it. Like, I like it better than The Exorcist, but that you like but and this is where it gets in. Again, this has nothing to do with feelings on something or judgment or anything like that. You like it better than The Exorcist, but you love it for what it is, but you're aware of its limitations. Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying it's technically better than The Exorcist, because that would be silly.
There's something to the vibe of something like that.
Yeah.
That is comfort food for you in the way the Hallmark Channel is comfort food for other people, and they know those. Yeah, well, they know that the acting is what it is, and the writing is like pretty,
Yeah, they're in it for a pound, and that's perfectly fine.
Right.
I think the moral of our show, if we ever freaking had a moral to our show, is there should be no guilty pleasures, because there should be no shame, unless you're, I don't know, what show should we vilify? That's just, unless you're, it's Christmas.
Well, no, but that's the tricky bit. That's where I'm going with this. How do you you know, I don't know. Are there people that love Seventh Heaven that are so addicted to it from way back that they love it, and you know, like people are going, really, Seventh Heaven? Like I don't know where I'm trying to think now. I didn't know you were gonna have a list of.
I didn't tell you.
For the movie. But I'm looking at my stuff. I'm just trying to think of stuff, and I'm thinking, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
I guess guilty pleasures are things you really can't justify. Like, I'm holding in my hands a film called The Lost Empire by Jim Wynorski, who I actually am friends with on Facebook. And Jim Wynorski is someone, I think, who models himself after Roger Corman and Russ Meyer and a bunch of other filmmakers. First and foremost, he's a fan of the genre, and he had written books on science fiction movies, and he worked for magazines and that sort of thing.
I know that. It's totally
famous. And he's also a big fan of boobs. So he made his first feature film is a movie called The Lost Empire, and it is like kind of Return of the Dragon meets Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. It is with a lot of like 60s James Bond thrown in. From what I understand, he was given the money by somebody who wanted to lose the money. So they gave him the money and said, make whatever you want.
They're like, call Jim.
Yeah, and he made the movie, and it was actually financially successful. Because, you know, Jim knew how to make... you know, what he liked was somewhat commercially popular. You know, he has a lot of beautiful women running around topless. There is karate action. There is, you know, secret bases with laser guns. There's monsters. It's crazy, and it's completely in its own universe. It is in its own reality. It is not anywhere based in our, like, you know, just from minute one you realize, oh yeah, it's well made, but you realize this is just nonsense. And I unapologetically, I first saw it when I was 15 years old, and I admit that did have a direct influence on me. But yeah, I also saw Life Force when I was 14, and that featured the most, you know, stunning woman I'd ever seen at the time, nude, and I can't sit through Life Force for the life of me. But the Lost Empire I never bore of.
Life Force is a great example of something that absolutely up and down was destroyed when it came out and was a joke. Got made fun of. It was horrible. But by God, there are people that, I mean, that's on Blu-ray. There are people that wanted that on Blu-ray, and it's out there. It's made its way to Blu-ray. You know, there's a following
I gotta get that.
For that movie. Yes, exactly.
I gotta watch the first 30 minutes for a while.
I can think more in terms of movies that I might be the only person I know that digs it kind of thing, or that sort of, you know, I've spent, like I say, a good chunk of my life defending things that other people go, really, that movie, you know, whether it's Flash Gordon or The Rock, The Nice Guys. I mean, I keep going on about The Nice Guys. Like I've tried.
Yeah, but I adore The Nice Guys. So.
The Nice Guys. But some people don't quite. They finally see it and go, yeah, I didn't really like that movie that you suggested. So I think in terms of things that, you know, like I own Sharky's Machine on Blu-ray, Burt Reynolds movie. Of all Burt Reynolds movies, I own Sharky's Machine, which is actually a good, gritty, insane kind of movie.
And totally tied into Venture Brothers lore now.
And it's now in Venture Brothers lore. That's right. They do the tune, the cover, or the tune that's in it, in the opening credits or whatever. It's hard for me to think of stuff that I have that's sort of, you know, like I say, like 10 years ago, it might have been, Flash Gordon. There's a movie that I tell people they should see that is a lot of fun, that maybe this will make the list, because I don't know anyone that's seen this. You know, what's his name who did blah, 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 Phantasm.
Don Coscarelli, yeah.
Don Coscarelli.
Yeah.
He did an adaptation of a book called John Dies at the End.
Oh, yeah, that is actually, I've heard lots of people defend that movie and love it.
It's a great movie. I think it's on Netflix right now. You can see it, but the book is written. It's a pseudonym. Whoever writes these books, and the first one's called John Dies, and I think the second one's called This Book Is Full of Spiders. and as you're reading the book, it's sort of telling you, like, there's one on your arm right now. Like, it's a really weird, like, story within a story kind of thing, but they do a really good job with a low budget adapting this book to this as a movie. And Clancy Brown is in it, and you've got the two leads I've never seen before or whatever, but it's a movie that no one's really seen, but it's the death to me. It's like and Giamatti's in it. Like, Paul Giamatti's friends with Don Coscarelli. They were going to do like a Bubba Hotep thing that never worked out, and then this thing happened, and he called up Giamatti's like, would you mind being in it? And he's in it, and but it's the kind of thing that you just know from the moment they must have pushed the boat out that he knew it was going to be a cult thing. There's no way that this was going to find a huge audience.
Yeah,
it's a very specific kind of story. But it's hard for me to think of stuff that's so out there that, you know.
Well, I liken it to we'll watch stuff that's kind of disposable 70s stuff. Like, my wife and I are really into the 70s disaster movies right now. So we will watch, like, Earthquake or, the Towering Inferno or Concorde. And those things are really, really out of vogue now. They're kind of dismissed as cheesy, but, there was some really amazing artistry in those, and we'll watch them. But yeah, I think we're living in the niche market more and more. And it's harder and harder to find things that people either revile. Like, you can always find a sympathetic ear these days, and I think that's kind of great. There's probably a whole world of people who love Spice World, and The Mirror Has Two Faces, and Glitter, and
Funny to say, Mirror Has Two Faces. I started watching it the other night.
Oh, of course. I've got the Blu-ray.
Rock Hudson, and it's like this is not a terrible movie. It's
Rock
exactly
Hudson.
It's exactly what you think it would be. It's not a bad movie or anything. You just said something else. You were saying something that was, what did you say that was sort of it was a disaster type thing you were talking about? There's a recent one that I can't for the life of me understand why people had such hate for, and I finally saw it. Did you see the new Hellboy?
No.
People just absolutely hated this movie. And it's not great, but it is not.
Well, I felt that way about that Tom Cruise Mummy movie. I thought, this is not great, but this is not making me want to claw my eyes out in any way, shape, or form. And it's bland.
It's big and dumb.
Yeah.
It's big and dumb. Like the other Hellboy movies. It's big and dumb. It's just a really hard R, and there's a ton of swearing and ugliness in it, but it's not that different than. Here's the moral, I think, of all this is I don't think if the stuff that we're talking about, the love for all the stuff we're talking about, or like what is cult and what is guilty and whatever, I don't think we'd have a guy like Tarantino. I mean, to me, Tarantino's entire body of work is stuff that it rarely bleeds over into mainstream inspiration kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It all comes from a certain place because he's seen goddamn everything. I think he's the poster boy for such things, kind of, that he's so specific in the things he knows, and but it's hard to think of stuff. You still find people that you have to educate on things, or say, oh, that's something you should check out, or how can I see that? And then sometimes they will, and then sometimes it's too much work and they don't want to. But and everything is sort of, you can find everything. Like the three things you mentioned, I'm sure I could find those pretty easily.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about The Lost Empire, but the other two are probably quite easy to track down. And I've got more, but it's just a matter of we could just delve deeper and deeper into this. But again, like, I don't think I have any surprises in my bag. And while I wouldn't open up with this at a dinner party, if I got to know you, I'd be like, I love this stuff. I unapologetically, I don't apologize for anything I like.
You know,
I refuse to, because why?
Let me tell a story. Let me tell a quick story that I
Sure.
think will be a good way to, a little bit of holiday cheer and a little bit of how upside down Jason's life can be sometimes, or I'm living in a movie myself. I said this just a little bit. I referenced earlier how much, not dislike, how much I loathe The Last Jedi. We don't have time to go into it. I don't have time to talk about it. Anybody who knows me or knows the movie should understand completely what I don't like, why I don't like it, etc., etc. But I haven't, I've never tried to convince anyone who loves it that they shouldn't. I've never said, well, the fact that you love it tells me more about, it's just like, if that's your thing, or like the prequels or whatever, you're welcome to it. Not my thing, not for me, and whatever. The thing that I've always sort of reacted to is what's been going on for 2 years of the people that love it telling everyone who doesn't like it the reasons they don't like it. And that's just not true. There's a toxic element out there, no doubt, but it is not. I don't know anyone that talks about it in those terms who doesn't like it. What I'm getting at is, I remember Rian Johnson from a movie called Brick, his first movie. And I saw Brick in the theater, and it's a great movie. It's a little film noir thing, and he took a bunch of high school characters. He took a Bogart film noir type mystery and applied it to a high school, and it had all these characters talking that way, and the principal was kind of like the police captain hauling the kid in, and there's a mystery because the girl goes missing and whatever. I loved it, and I thought to myself at the time, I'll see anything this guy does. I'm curious to see where his career goes. Then he made the brothers, whatever the hell it was called, Karamazov or whatever, which was okay. Then he made Looper, and I liked Looper. I thought Looper was, it was a fine movie. So when his name was announced for Last Jedi, I was like, okay, yeah, let's see what this guy does. Cut to, here we are 2 years later, and the rest is history. So I'm meeting my friend Malcolm a couple weeks ago. He's in town for a few days, and he's in town from London, and the last day where he's here, I'm like, well, let's go see this movie Knives Out. See, as much as I dislike Last Jedi, I still was willing to see Knives Out because I want to see a good, clever murder mystery, right? I mean, looks good, right? Can't beat the cast, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So I say to him, I'm going to get, I'll meet you there. I'm going to get tickets. I'll meet you at the Arc. We can go to Amoeba for a little bit. And as I'm on my way to Amoeba, he calls me and says, hey, when are you going to get here? He goes, wait, what are we seeing again? I said, it's called Knives Out. Oh, yeah. He goes, yeah, those guys are here. I said, where are you? He said, I'm at Amoeba. I said, what do you mean those guys are there? He said, yeah, the guys, the movie people, the guys that made the movie, they're here. And I said, okay, here we go. Okay, I'll see you in a bit. I get to Amoeba, they're not there. I said, what are you talking about? There was a thing, they were up there, they were signing stuff, there was a thing for Knives Out. And Rian Johnson and his brother. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And so we leave Amoeba, we're going to go next door to get a bite to eat, and then we're going to go see the movie. And as we walk into the restaurant, there's Rian Johnson and his brother sitting at the bar in this pizza place on Sunset Boulevard next to the ArcLight. And I go, oh, shit, holy shit, that is them. And Malcolm goes, see, I told you I was talking to them. We walk past them, we go to our table, and I said, no way, that's crazy. They were there. Here they are at the thing. Come on, let's go talk to them. I was talking to them earlier, because I was talking to this woman that works there, and I was talking to her. I said, Malcolm, no, we don't need to go. No, come on, we'll go say hi. We'll talk to them. I was talking to her. I said, you don't understand. You don't understand how much I don't like this movie and what he did, and I just can't. Before I know it, Malcolm's up away from the table, heads over to them. So I get up, and now I'm in this situation where I'm walking over to meet Rian Johnson, who there are so many things I want to say. Of course, I'm not going to say anything. But Malcolm starts talking. I said, yeah. I said, hey, introduced myself. I said, it would feel weird to me if we were about to go see the 8 o'clock of your movie, and he wanted to come over and say hi, and I didn't say hi. That's ridiculous. we get to talking. He says something. He's asking Malcolm what he's in town, what he's doing, and then what did you do last time? It was a music thing. We did an Amoeba, and then he points to me. Malcolm says, and Jason knows Roger Joseph Manning. And Rian Johnson looks at me and goes, from Jellyfish? I said, yeah.
No.
Yeah. Jellyfish. He goes, oh, I love Jellyfish. I was just talking to him about Jason Falkner the other day. Did you ever get into the grave? I'm like, yeah, I know the album. Oh, yeah. We're talking about Jellyfish. The next thing we're talking about is Largo on Fairfax. And we were talking about how great that place was. And I said, I remember whenever anybody mentions Patton Oswalt, I remember going there one night, and he did this bit about Robert Evans and ESPN Zone. And Rian Johnson turns to me and goes, I was there the night he did that the first time. I said, I was there the night he did that the first time. He's like, you're kidding me. We were there the same time? I said, we were there the same time, same night. So suddenly I'm becoming best friends.
So you're leaving me to do a podcast with Rian Johnson is what you're telling me. I'm okay with that. I'm not threatened.
But meanwhile, there's this rage inside of me that, with this thing that he did to this movie and these characters and stuff. So, we walked away.
I believe the opening scroll of the new Star Wars, which is called Rise of Skywalker, is going to say, it was all just a dream. And then Patrick Duffy will be showering for an hour and a half.
I've replayed the incident in my head a couple times, and people have made fun. You like Rian Johnson.
You're a new best friend.
We have stuff in common. That's it. That's all. But I said, but I'll tell you this. You go, did you tell me you saw this movie? No, I didn't. That would have been douchey. I wouldn't do that. And I said, but if he was on his way out of the restaurant, and if he had turned to me and said, hey, listen, I'm just glad that you weren't one of these people that hates Last Jedi so much that you want to fucking say something to me, then I would have gone, well, as a matter of fact. And at the time I was telling him about Brick and how I saw Brick, like when it came out, like nobody saw this thing, but I heard about it somehow. He's like, how did you know about Brick? And so I'm kind of complimenting him, and I was completely nice. He was a gentleman. But if he had brought up Last Jedi, I would have said something to him. I would have told him how I felt.
You ruined my childhood. No, I kid.
But there you go. But that's a great, like, here's a guy that has, again, back to the Lindelof thing, a guy that knows what he's doing and loves this source material. Here's this guy, and yet here I am talking to him, and do you know how rare it is to meet someone who even knows the band Jellyfish, much less the names of the members of the band?
Yeah, that is something else.
And like, so there you go. He and I, we have this cult stuff in common, but can't make a movie to save his life. Sorry.
I forget who I ran into once, and he was very nice. And I just, I held my tongue from saying, I don't respect your work, but God, you're very nice. I'll remember it after we hang up. But yeah, I did have a celebrity run-in with somebody I didn't respect, and they turned out to be just incredibly sweet. And it was like...
He could not have been nicer.
Yeah, I had to separate the art from the artisan and go, they're a really nice person.
I'm like, damn it, you're actually really nice.
I did hear something about Don King being that nice. Everybody knows Don King is a bit of a monster, but they have said that, spend 10 minutes with him and you'll be eating out of his hand because he's charming. And
okay, there's great. This will be you said Don.
I did.
I'm surprised how I've reached a point now where when I mention Miami Vice to people, they go on about how great that original show was. Like, I've met more people, it was a long, long, long time where it was like, really? Miami Vice, the 80s MTV type show like that. And it's kind of, I think it's turned a bit because Johnson has showed up in so much stuff. People are casting him in so much stuff. And there's talk of maybe a new series or something. But that's something that I didn't really think was going to come around again, that people were going to sort of, appreciate that in some way. That was sort of a cult thing for a long time.
Well, but if you look at a lot of 70s stuff, this is where I go. Like, when I grew up in the 80s, I was still into 70s stuff, and everyone was mocking. I know it's shocking that I'm into 70s stuff, but everybody was mocking that stuff, for the clothes and the fashion. And I think everything goes out of fashion for a while. So Miami Vice was very of its era. It really did. It was popular and it personified the 80s. It became the 80s. And now
Yeah.
the 80s is, oh my God, everything that the 80s shat out is freaking amazing. No offense, I hate the Goonies. And I can't believe, like, I almost got punched in the face for saying that once. And, so I think everything has its turn again. If it was popular once, it'll be popular again. And I've talked to some 80s kids, and they've particularly denied the fact that the 90s, there will be no 90s nostalgia. And I'm like, you will get old. It will become old hat, and people will be celebrating the Spice Girls and Aqua again. That's going to happen because, the best time to be a kid is when you're 8. And everything that was, it goes through these phases. We were making fun of the 80s and the 90s. And then it just comes back again. I honestly believe that. So Miami Vice being respected for what it is now doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, I think it's more that it's not like in a yacht rock kind of way. It's more of a full appreciation of just.
It wasn't a bad show.
Yeah, what the scope of the show was, which is refreshing to see that people are sort of. So I think everything is kind of permitted now. Everything
Yes.
is just sort of.
What I'm trying to say is, well, I think the theme of this show, and you came up with it, really is, I don't think there's any guilty pleasures left.
Yeah.
And because I don't feel guilty about whatever I like. I'm wearing a Young Ones T-shirt right now, and most of my T-shirts are things that I really like, that aren't popular or necessarily mainstream. But what the hell? I don't care anymore. Let's not care about what other people think. Pop culture is entirely dependent on you. And I like that. So, I hopefully will walk into that Star War in a couple weeks. I probably won't see it till after Christmas, just due to my schedule. And like it, I hope. But if I don't care.
Yeah, it's just like there's luckily we're not starved for options these days.
That's absolutely true.
Stuff out there.
I'm super bored of the CW superhero shows, but I don't tend to complain about them because it's like I can remember tuning into The Flash every week in 1990. I couldn't miss it because it was the only thing going, and to have this I could watch. There's more superhero shows that I'm ignoring than there are ones that I'm watching. What a place I live in,
We talked about this prior to recording. I've tried with the CW stuff. I have tried with Titans. I've tried with some other things. Again, I'm not gonna crap on them, but just kind of not my oof. I just don't. I can't do it. I've tried. 2 shows that were on this year that I highly recommend everybody seek out if they trust our opinion in any way. One is Doom Patrol.
Amazing show.
Which DC streaming thing, which is shocking to me that 2 of the same producers of that produced on Titans. You could put I never would have thought the same bunch of people because I can't believe how good Doom Patrol is. It's so freaking good. Everybody in it.
In defense of Titans, I should hate that show, but I watched every episode of it, and I don't
hate it. I don't hate it.
But I should hate it. But I think it's like it pushes. You know that episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns goes to the doctor and he goes, "You have everything," and it somehow works. We shove them all through this door and we can't get them through. Titans works like it is cheesy, it is over the top, it is ridiculous, and I
you know what?
I tune in every week.
When it works, I think
Pardon me.
It's pretty good when it works.
Yeah.
And I wish the stuff that worked, I wish they'd spend more time. Like anytime we go into the girl, the emo girl, I just go, I don't care. But Doom Patrol is great. But I'll tell you one of the best things of the entire year for me, I can't believe it, is Pennyworth on Epic. Pennyworth is
We can't be friends. Goodbye.
Pennyworth, have you seen any of it?
No, my son went to our version of Comic-Con because I've joked with my son about that show existing, And my son and I have worked out a treatment for a series called Kent Farm. And, bear with me, it takes place in the Kent Farm long before, Superman arrives. So this is like Jonathan Kent's dad.
Okay.
And,
I know what you're
occasionally, like, Rex Tyler will visit the Kent Farm, but he's not our man. These little things. And we came up with this whole premise that, patent pending, we can get sold. And we were just laughing at the ridiculousness of Pennyworth. So,
Okay.
understanding you are a spy guy, so I imagine this,
That's the thing. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Is it truly? I look at this thing. To me, it's almost like the guys doing it apparently also do Gotham. Maybe I think they're the same.
Oh,
same
that's not helping.
That DC or whoever. Exactly. It's exactly where I'm going with it. I saw that way back before it aired. I saw 2 episodes. There was a screening I went to, and I sat there with my buddy Matt, and I was like, when we finished the first one, I went, "Wow, that was like really good." Then the second one, it's like they said to them, "What do you want to do?" And they said, "Well, we basically want to make this insane version of a 60s spy show, hard R-rated, in an alternate universe where the beefeaters walking around London or in front of Buckingham Palace are carrying submachine guns. And we'll call it Pennyworth." And so it's really just kind of tangentially related in any way to DC.
Oh.
Thomas Wayne is a character in it. Pennyworth is, but he's this guy who's like a former, he was a British soldier that's now back in London doing odd jobs. And it's like conspiracy type shit, but it's like the opening titles are like a modern version of the Wild Wild West titles.
Okay, I did never follow that rabbit down the hole, so maybe I will now based on your recommendation. But when I first heard about it, I went like,
trust me.
Oh my God, no,
they're doing a second season, and it is so. There have been a couple of episodes that are so out there, just freaking weird, and the violence is like, oh my God, it's twisted. It's a weird show, and you just at a certain point you just kind of forget that it's called Pennyworth. He basically, the lead kid's like walking around, this Cockney kid, he sounds like Michael Caine, but you kind of get in the sense that he's morally all over the place. He is not a good person, and he takes these jobs for money and stuff. He's a good person that he's not a total villain, but it's got this weird cabal of different characters from the time sort of show up in it, but it's like a weird alternate London of the time. Everything looks the same, but then there'll be it's a period show, but then you'll hear the little band, the gazebo band in a park in one scene playing the Jam, which is a song from 81 or 82, and you're going, oh, I see what they're doing here. You go into a bar in the mid-60s where there's women in cages, and you hear the Clash.
It's sort of like what's Peaky Blinders. I've only watched one episode, but Red Right Hand is played.
Yes, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that. Only this one, songs that don't belong there make their way into the narrative more, and it's clearly just going, we're going to do whatever we want. This is this weird show, and it's got very little to do with anything in the DC world. The only characters that I think are from the Batman things are Pennyworth and Thomas Wayne, and I think maybe the Martha shows up as this other character later on, but that's it. That's it. It's just this weird London where these fascists are taking over and stuff, and it's really good. It's really good.
So you're going to be the executive producer on Kent Farm for me?
I'll do Kent Farm. I'll
All
pick
right.
that thing. I think you'll like Pennyworth. Believe me. Give it a shot.
Now I'm going to check it out. So,
good.
I think we should wrap up here.
I got a little furry Bowie here looking at me, needing to go out and do his business, I think. So I
got to go into the yard and do my own business. So, I guess to surmise, we don't believe in guilty pleasures, and Merry Christmas, because this is probably going out before Christmas. Thanks
everything you like sucks.
Yeah.
We don't believe in guilty pleasures, but your case is horrible. Merry Christmas, everybody.
So, thanks everyone for listening this year. We'll be back with our best of probably in 2 weeks. When we figure out when we've got some free time, we'll sit down and talk about our favorite things of the year. which might include Watchman and Pennyworth, apparently.
I got a feeling.
Yeah, yeah. So, thanks again.
All right, man.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, everybody.
Have fun.
Merry Christmas.
All right, man. I'm going to take
Good
off.
stuff?
Yeah, it was
All right,
wonderful.
man.
Take care.
Yeah, we'll try to talk or text before Christmas for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.